Is your local business or organization looking to give back to the community? Help keep our roads clean by joining the Adopt a Road program administered by Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Keeping our roads clean is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcfl.gov/cleanhc.
Oh man, here comes Arnie again.
Check this out.
What's up, Arnie? What are you doing? You made a mess in my hallway.
Hey Arnie, looks like you could use a hand. Let me help you.
You don't need superpowers to be a hero. Help make Hillsborough bully-free.
morning and welcome to the Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 regularly scheduled land use meeting in the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. Would everyone please rise for the pledge and invocation given by our chaplain, Commissioner Myers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, we ask that you would bless this land use meeting. We ask that you would put a special blessing on those applicants who have submitted their application before this board today. We ask that you would bless our staff who have prepared the information for the board to receive. I ask that you bless this day in your name's sake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Myers. Mr. Grady, it's my understanding we don't have any new changes to the agenda, just what's on the printed agenda?
That is correct. Just the printed withdrawals and continuances beginning on page 3 of the agenda.
All right, so we can just have a motion on the changes?
Correct.
Move changes.
Second.
Motion, Commissioner Cohen, second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, this time can we have a motion for the consent agenda? Motion, Commissioner Myers.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on the consent agenda.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, so if anyone here is for a B item, your application's been approved. This time, if you're planning on testifying today, would you please stand, raise your right hand so the clerk can swear you in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, Mr. Grady, on to the public hearing agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services Department. The first item on our agenda is agenda item E1. It's PRS application 24-0874. Commissioners, this is a request for a minor modification to a 3.21 acre parcel that's located at the northeast corner of Monroe Business Park and Racetrack Road in northwest Hillsborough County. The request is to modify existing site plan associated with a brewery and tap room to add additional parking, storage, and enlarge the patio area. Staff is recommending approval and will be available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? Please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Christopher Chin with Cannon Fleming Trans Systems located at 565 South Hercules Avenue.
Good morning, I'm Leon. I work with Chris on Trans Systems.
All right, anything you need to add?
No, sir. We're just here available for any questions that the Commissioner might have.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone here in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? All right, can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Got a motion, Commissioner Myers, second, Commissioner Cohen. I don't see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on E1.
Commissioner Bowles? Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is agenda item E2, PRS application 24-0914. This is a request for a minor modification to a 12.8 acre planned development that's located at the northwest corner of Sims Road and Trotwood Drive. The applicant's request to modify the type, size, and configuration of enclosed and open storage and the location of access. The access point is being moved from Sims Road to Trotwood Drive. Staff is recommending approval and we'll be open for any questions. Thank you.
All right, the applicant here. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Wright with TSP Companies. Address is P.O. Box 1273, Tampa, Florida 33608. This is a minor modification to a PD. We work with staff and we're in agreement with all the conditions. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition?
Move approval.
Got a motion to approve, Commissioner Cohen, second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on E2.
Motion carried 7-0.
Next item.
The next item is agenda item E3, PRS application 24-1124. This is for a minor modification of a 6.24 acre parcel located at the corner of Olin Avenue and Broad Street in North Tampa. The request is to modify the location of the access point on West Broad Street, moving it further west from its current location, and then also as part of this, they are reducing the number of townhome units from 61 to 33. Staff is recommending approval. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. Jessica Kowal with Landis Evans and Partners. Address is 3810 Northfield Boulevard in Tampa, and I am available for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Anyone here in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion, Commissioner Myers, second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on E3.
Motion carried 7-0.
E4.
Commissioners, the next item is application agenda number item E4, PRS application 24-1126. This is a minor modification to a 2.8 acre parcel in a PD located at the southwest corner of the intersection of West Beers Avenue and Lake Magdalene Boulevard. The request is to remove a requirement for sidewalks and crosswalks along Lake Magdalene Boulevard. Staff is recommending approval, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Applicant here? Good morning.
Commissioners, good morning. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. I think staff provided a fairly excellent account of the request this morning. We all know Bears Grove. It's a local treasure that Fox 13 loves to broadcast from in the mornings. It is not, however, exempt from the LDC, and a couple years ago we ran a PD to bring it up to county code for some particular reasons. One of the conditions of that effort was a mid-block crossing on Lake Magdalene. And at the time of the zoning, it seemed to make sense, but as we got into site development, the enormity of that off-site improvement really started to become apparently disproportionate to the scale of the operation, which as an ag stand is really, it's supposed to be temporary in nature. So we came back, we worked with Mr. Gormley, with staff, and we arrived at the conclusion today, which is really just to delete that condition and allow pedestrian access to move through the existing neighborhood to the existing sidewalk on Bears. I think it's a total win for everyone, and I'm very proud to be here representing Bears Grove. I'd like to thank Half Engineering, Palm Traffic, and now Dirt on Demand for bringing this together. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, sir. Any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? All right, can we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion, Commissioner Miller, second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on E4.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
E5.
Next item is agenda item E5, PRS application 24-1129. This is a request for a minor modification of plan development and review concerning the mosaic phosphogypsum stack. They are requesting to increase the stack maximum height from 250 feet to 264 feet. Staff is recommending approval, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. Vinette Godelia with Stearns Weaver Miller, 401 East Jackson Street, here on behalf of Mosaic. We do have a full team here ready to present. If you have any questions, we worked with staff. We believe the staff report is accurate, and the application was pretty thorough, and we talked with staff through those details. So we're happy to present at your direction.
All right, thank you. Anyone in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Can we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion, Commissioner Cohen.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Myers. I'll see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on E5.
Motion carried 7-0.
E6.
Commissioner, next item is agenda item E6, DRI modification, DRI application 24-1012. This is a modification of the development order for the GG Farms Development of Regional Impact. GG Farms DRI is located at the northeast corner of State Road 674 and US 301. The primary purpose of the request is to modify the trade-off matrix that's within the DR development order that regulates maximum trips for the projects and allows trade-off of uses up to that maximum that's specified within the development order. They are adding 2 new uses to the trade-off matrix, essentially single family and mini warehouse. Staff is recommending approval, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Steve Henry, Links & Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Can we have a motion?
Approval.
Motion, Commissioner Cohen.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on E6.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, E7. Is that the Planning Commission?
Yes, Commissioners, items E7, 8, or 9 are Planning Commission items, and Melissa Leinhardt will speak to these 3 items. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. I'm going to give a brief description of this particular request, along with outlining the specific criteria that's outlined in the Plan Amendment Procedures Manual for unincorporated Hillsborough County that pertain to privately initiated text amendments. And following this item, there are 2 additional and unrelated items that are privately initiated as well for the board to consider. Jay Collins and Jillian Massey, Planning Commission staff planners, they're working on each item. They'll be presenting those 2 under the subsequent 2 agenda items. This particular agenda item is for your initial consideration. It's HCCPA 24-32, which is a privately initiated comprehensive plan text amendment to eliminate policy 47.18 under the planned environmental community section of the future land use element of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Pursuant to the procedures manual, once a privately initiated text amendment to the comprehensive plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County is applied for, Planning Commission staff then schedules them for initial consideration at a meeting with the Board of County Commissioners, which is why we're here today. Also, per the procedures manual requirements, Planning Commission staff has determined that no additional public outreach is necessary due to the limited scope of the change, as the proposed policy removal impacts the Hillsborough River State Park to the south, with whom the applicant has coordinated. In addition, a change to the zoning would need to occur if this privately initiated text amendment is approved, which would also allow for the public another opportunity for feedback. The procedures manual also addresses the process for the meeting wherein the initial consideration is to be made. At the scheduled meeting, the applicant is afforded time to make a presentation, and public testimony will also be permitted. And then following board discussion, the board shall take one of the following actions after review of the report by the Planning Commission and testimony provided by the applicant. A motion to take no further action on the application, and then a refund of 80% of the amount of the application fee will be provided should this occur. Or B, a motion to allow the application to proceed for review and public hearing in accordance with the procedures outlined in the manual. And that motion shall address the Planning Commission's recommendations on the review timelines, the public outreach, and the provision of additional resources if applicable. And with that, Ms. Massey did put up a map of the site for 2432. This plan amendment is actually, Jillian, would you, oh, there we go. It's outlined in green on the north side of this picture. That's Highway 301 located on the east, and this is just north of Hillsborough River State Park, and the north part of that map is the Pasco County line. So this policy would affect this one geographical location located within unincorporated county. It is one future land use category only applicable to this one location. With that, I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Good morning.
Good morning. Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward & Henderson, representing the applicant Eisenhower Property Group this morning. This change was actually prompted by the State Parks Department. The policy required public access to this state park in this location, and the State Parks Department really doesn't support that access, and they actually asked us to amend that in the letter. That we do have a letter in the record from them, so we would ask that you move this forward and allow this change to be made, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Okay, if not, I guess we need a motion to allow the plan amendment to proceed along the normal process.
So moved.
A motion, Commissioner
Second.
Cohen, second Commissioner Myers. Don't see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on E7.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, B8.
For this item, Ms. Jillian Massey will be presenting it. We won't go into the history of the procedures manual and the process because you just heard it, so that applies to this item and then the next item as well. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. As Ms. Leinhard mentioned, this is initial consideration of HC CPA 24-33 on South Dover Road. This is approximately 31.83 acres of land in the Residential 1 future land use designation, currently in the rural area. The applicant is requesting a text amendment to expand the urban service area boundary into this area. Staff is recommending that if this application were to move forward, that the applicant provide an analysis of how the request is consistent with future land use element policies relating to the urban service area, and also applicable objectives and policies relating to the rural area. And an applicant report analyzing the compatibility of the proposed urban service area extension with the surrounding future land use pattern, with particular attention to the rural area that would be surrounded by the urban service area if the proposed amendment were adopted. It's also recommended that once these items are submitted and the staff has found it sufficient, then and the additional community meeting that's being recommended occurs, then the plan amendment couldn't be scheduled into a plan amendment cycle. And I believe that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Good morning again. Cami Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. I'm representing Homes by West Bay on this particular application. They have several successful large lot single-family developments in this general area. We had the option to try to proceed with the October cycle of plan amendments, but we did not want to do that because we did not want to rush the public, the meeting opportunities with the public. We know that's important, so we've actually asked this to go forward in the January cycle, as if it had not been previously delayed. We did file this back actually in July, but we would like to proceed. We know we need to meet with the community to have a conversation about this, but we would like your authorization to proceed, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone like to speak to this item? Please come forward.
Approval. Oh, excuse me.
Someone wants to speak.
I believe there's multiple of us.
Please come forward.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Neiman. I live in Dover Woods, which is almost next to the property in question, and I manage the Dover Woods HOA. Myself and the vast majority of residents in our area are against what is being proposed by this applicant. The applicant had stiff community opposition when he filed for a rezoning asking for only 19 homes 2 years ago, but the county unfortunately approved it. Now he's trying to change our comprehensive plan from rural to urban to increase the number of homes by 85% to a total of 125 homes. That's bad enough, but here are more reasons why this application should be canceled up front. There are over 49,000 acres of developable land in the urban service area for growth. This requested rural to urban change is self-serving rather than serving a county-wide growth need. The county has other large-scale, monstrous land development changes pending right now as we speak. I know that the county doesn't like to look at things in a comprehensive manner, but this instance really warrants it. There is a pending plan change that would allow putting 1,200 homes a few hundred feet from this applicant's property, all requiring Dover Road as a single access point. It would be insanity to not consider what is going to be decided before this text change should ever be considered. And I'm referring to the Energy Industrial Park. The reality is that the character of the area south and east of the applicant's property is rural in character. If the board were to be prudent, they would cancel this case until other pending cases can be decided that are scheduled before this one, and a full assessment of available resources can be evaluated at that time. The big question is, do you want to be prudent or accommodating to applicants? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Yvette Neiman, East Hillsborough, and I'm here to ask you to cancel Comp Plan Amendment 2433. I'm requesting this at the initial review for several reasons. Myself and many friends and neighbors that live very close to the applicant's property. South Dover Road has experienced a lot of land development in recent years, and there's a whole lot more of pending development that's already being planned, and I'm referring to the Energy Industrial Park. The applicant filed a rezoning approximately 2 years ago to develop this landlocked piece of property. He asked to use another subdivision's internal roads for his new subdivision's access. The community was overwhelmingly opposed to it. Sadly, despite the community's opposition, the county approved it anyway. As if that was not enough, the applicant wants to impose even more congestion on Dover Road by adding 125 more homes in place of the original 19 homes. The community is vehemently opposed to this application. Please don't put them through any more stress. If you look at all of the issues that this and the other pending land development will bring to Dover Road and the surrounding area, you should have no problem in canceling this request until other massive pending cases have been resolved. Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that's present?
Commissioner, we have one online.
Sure. Those that are virtual, please proceed.
Christina, go ahead.
Hi. So I definitely oppose. I am just to the south side of the property, right beside the property in question. And I also can speak for the neighbor on the north side, Joe Kurtz. We are both opposing it. Our properties are on a few acres, give or take, and definitely this is rural. This road has already gotten a little bit out of control. It's kind of like playing a game of Frogger going to your mailbox across the street. And I realize that is probably a small issue that can be resolved, but this is a rural in nature neighborhood, and to plop 30, 50, 100 homes right in between houses on a few acres each would really destroy the whole how do you say, setting of what this is meant to be here.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Is anyone else virtual?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Commissioner Cohen's motion.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Myers to, again, proceed along the normal plan amendment process. I don't see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on E8.
Motion carried 6-1. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
Okay, E9.
Yes, sir. This is another initial consideration item for the board to discuss, and Mr. Jay Collins will be presenting this item for the Planning Commission staff. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jay Collins, Planning Commission staff. Up for you is initial consideration of HCCPA 2435 and 2437. This is privately initiated comprehensive plan text amendment to expand the urban service area boundary. We should be able to see on the east side of Balm Waimama Road, We should be able to see 2435 on the west side of Balm Waimama Road, 2437. To the north is actually County Road 672. This is Residential Plan 2. This is located within the publicly initiated Board of County Commissioners expansion for the urban service boundary. It is about 370 acres on the east, 270 acres on the west. The data requirements as well as the meeting requirements are laid out in the memo. They are about the same as what Ms. Massey spoke to with the previous amendment. That concludes this presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Cami Corbett again with the law firm of Hill, and Henderson, representing Eisenhower Property Group on this particular amendment. It is in the Balm area, which is in the area-wide location where this county is looking to expand the urban service boundary. We did actually have our community meeting already on this, and it was an informative meeting. I mean, obviously, the most concern that people have is infrastructure, and that's not news to you all. But overall, it was a fairly cordial, professional meeting, and we look forward to working with the public as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone like to speak to this item? Okay, can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion, Commissioner Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on E9.
Motion carried, 6-1. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
Okay, under F items.
Commissioners, the next item is agenda item F1, rezoning PD 24-0238. This is a request for a rezone of 1.63 acre parcel located at the southwest corner of Temple Terrace Highway and Davis Road in the east of Temple Terrace and East Lake Orient Park area. The rezonings from RMC 9 with multifamily conventional district to plan development to allow for a 5,500 square foot convenience store with gas station. Staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it consistent, and the hearing officer is also recommending approval. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. J.D. El-Sabah, Sycamore Engineering, 8370 West Hillsborough Avenue, Suite 205, Tampa, Florida, 33615. And I have already sworn. I'm representing the applicant and ready to answer any question you have.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Okay, Planning Commission.
Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use category. The site is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. Future Land Use Element Policy 1.4 requires that new development within the urban service area be compatible with the surrounding area. There is a strip commercial development located east of the subject site across Davis Road. To the north across Temple Terrace Highway is a gas station and a church. There are also light industrial uses located to the northwest. While there is an existing single-family residential home to the west, the applicant is providing the required buffering and screening, meeting the intent of Future Land Use Element Policy 16.1, which requires buffering and screening between unlike land uses. Therefore, the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area and is consistent with that policy direction. The proposed convenience store is within the maximum allowable range, and proposed gas station use is an allowable use for consideration in this future land use category. The applicant is also providing for both vehicular and pedestrian cross access to the west, which is consistent with policy direction on providing multimodal connectivity between properties. The subject site is within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan, and this community plan supports opportunities for business growth and new jobs. The proposed gas station is consistent with this goal and therefore consistent with the vision of the community plan. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master reviewed the applicant's request for a rezoning of the subject property to plan development to allow a convenience store with gasoline pumps. The applicant had requested a variation to LDC buffering and screening requirements to accommodate a cross-access stub out to the adjacent residential parcel on the west. The applicant is also requesting a waiver of the LDC specific criteria for convenience store conditional use buffering and screening adjacent to residentially zoned property. The applicant also requested administrative variances for access spacing, as well as a design exception for substandard roadway improvements, all of which the county engineer found to be approvable. The zoning hearing master concluded that the proposed plan development rezoning is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, as well as with the land development code, and recommended approval.
All right, can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion, Commissioner Myers.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on F1.
Motion carries 7-0.
F2.
The next item is agenda item F2, major mod application 24-0397. Commissioners, this is a request for a major modification to 11.44 acre parcel located at the northeast corner of Hillsborough Avenue and Double Branch Boulevard in the West Hillsborough area of the county. The request is to modify the PD to add a second development option. The first development option would retain current approvals and development entitlements, which is for 90,000 square feet of commercial general uses. The second development option would retain commercial uses at the corner of Double Ranch and Hillsborough, consisting of 6,119 square feet. And then in the back half of the property would allow for 220 multifamily units. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Planning Commission found it consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the hearing officer also recommended approval. And we're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Truett Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive. Happy holidays to you. Just real quick, we represent Wagner Property Group, and this request in sum is an existing PD. It's 2 parcels, and what our request is to, on one of the parcels, which Addie will show you, to allow for an additional use, which is multifamily. It's currently entitled for over 80,000 square feet of commercial general uses, and so that's the nature of the request. We did have some concerns that were raised at the zoning hearing master hearing. We have reached out. One of those we knew, and we're actually working with that person. The others were surprises. I wanted to let each of you know that we have reached out to each of them individually and have made contact with all except for one. Addie's going to be running through what those concerns are. Primarily is traffic, stormwater, and then in particular, there were some improvements that were done not related to this rezoning, but that have negatively impacted one of the churches that's adjacent. And so I'm sure that'll be discussed too, and want to let you know that we're working with the applicant and also directly with Commissioner Cohen's office to see if there might be some sort of alleviation of that. That's a separate issue from the rezoning, but at least wanted to mention that and full disclosure of all issues that are out here. Thank you, and Addie, I'll let you run through real briefly.
Good morning, Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive. And if I could, thank you. So like Drew said, we'll run through this quickly. So the site is located in this yellow area. So it's located just north of Hillsborough Avenue, east of Double Branch Road. It's consisting of 2 folios of about 11.44 acres. And it has been zoned planned development since 1996, approved for commercial general uses with CG dimensional standards with multiple access points. And as Truett mentioned, there are various improvements to help alleviate traffic and improve operations. One being that raised median that were part of the Wawa that's currently being under construction, where you can clearly see it has been kind of raised there. And here is a clip of that 1996 PD plan. And what we're here before you today, this morning, really the only change is adding in this option 2 to introduce multifamily as a potential use. Important to note that commercial apartments is currently allowed under the 1996 plan development, but there are some pretty particular special requirements for commercial apartments that really aren't feasible here. So really the only change is that option 2 for 220 multifamily dwelling units, also with parcel 1 continuing to be the Wawa that's currently under construction. And so here we've identified parcel 1 and parcel 2, and again, no new driveway cuts for option 2. We would utilize the previously approved driveways and share between parcel 1 to the west and parcel 2 to the east. And then in this side, we shaded out parcel 1, again, as this the gas station under construction. And given the site's location along a collector and arterial roadway, but also adjacent to Double Branch Creek, the development's design is sensitive to its surroundings, excuse me, in terms of setbacks and height. The maximum height of 68 feet above finished floor elevation. This is a slight increase from the 60 feet that's in your staff report due to the potential for a peaked roof. And also that was due to coordination with EPC in order to be sensitive to the horizontal surroundings. And then on that note, we are providing a retaining wall that will protect the wetland and ensure that no untreated flow goes into that wetland. And we've worked closely with EPC and will continue to do so to mitigate any impacts. And then in terms of sidewalk and connectivity, we do have sidewalk throughout the site, and it will continue to do so for internal connectivity and also connect to those external sidewalks that are either already there or being improved or built. And then I'll touch on stormwater really quickly. We are improving the condition that's on the site today by providing underground stormwater chambers, and our civil engineer, David Laram, will go into that in more detail soon. And then lastly, traffic. And speaking with the neighbors, as Truett mentioned, we understand that traffic is a concern. And the analysis derived from the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual indicated an overall reduction in trips generated by this gas station and the multifamily development compared to the currently approved zoning plan, because that currently approved zoning plan approves 90,000 square feet of commercial, which is a very high generator. And these numbers for the multifamily and for the gas station would actually be even lower, considering the internal capture that occurs when someone from the residential development doesn't even have to go to the external roadway network to go get gas, grab a coffee or a sandwich from the Wawa that's being constructed next door. And the analysis conducted by the team's professional engineer concluded that option 2 would be fewer trips, and there would be no significant impact to the previously approved driveways and the external roadway network that are being improved as a part of the gas station. And then we are very fortunate to have coordinated with staff and received recommendation of approval from all departments, as well as from the zoning hearing master. And then we also, going back to EPC, we've had ongoing coordination with EPC to mitigate wetland impacts with thoughtful design and balancing reducing impacts while also providing an attractive and a viable place to live. So with that, I'll turn it over to David Laram, the project civil engineer, to discuss more details about stormwater. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is David Laram with Kimley Horn & Associates. I represent the civil engineer on the project. So this site is located within the coastal FEMA floodplain. As you can see on the map, the existing site sheet flows directly into Double Branch Creek here. As part of our project, we're proposing retaining walls along the east side of the project to raise the site out of the FEMA floodplain. Our on-site stormwater system is proposed to be underground stormwater chambers beneath the parking lot in order to maintain the existing flow patterns of the site. We are proposing a direct connection or discharge to the creek so that we're not adding discharge onto the adjacent roadways. The criteria we'll need to meet with Hillsborough County and FDOT. With Hillsborough County, we'll be required to show that the site does not have adverse impacts by modeling the site within the county's floodplain model. We'll need to do the same for FDOT. Due to proximity to FDOT's bridge crossing here, we'll be required to meet all FDOT 36 design storms of their design storm matrix. And I can answer any follow-up questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Does that conclude the presentation?
That does, thank you. Happy to answer any questions you may have, though.
All right, thank you, sir. Any proponent testimony? All right, those in opposition, and I have a few names that are down here. It's my understanding that 3 of them I guess, Madeline Pandorf, Joe Abernathy, and Douglas Orman are not party of record. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. I've reviewed the record and confirmed that those three persons did not qualify through the required party of record procedures prior to the Board of County Commissioners meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone here that's in opposition that is a qualified party of record? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Jonathan Brewer, 3432 State Road 580 in Safety Harbor, Florida. There's really only one question to be decided here today. That is, who is going to pay for the improvements to Double Branch Road? Will it be the developer or will it be the taxpayers of Hillsborough County? The MM 240397 application public notice states, additional information may be obtained or a neighborhood meeting may be requested by contacting the applicant or applicant's representative at the number listed above. In this case, it was 813-221-9600. I started calling in August to no avail. The public planning process is intended to be open, honest, and in the best interest of all parties. In simple terms, in good faith. Double Branch Road is a 2-lane, undivided, substandard collector roadway characterized by 12-foot wide travel lanes in average condition. These are not my words. These are the words of the staff report on page 22. Additionally, as part of this request, the developer is proposing to construct a 3-foot wide raised concrete median along a portion of that roadway. So now we've gone from 12-foot wide lanes to 10.5-foot wide lanes. This is additionally from the staff report on page 23. And a salient misstatement of fact, also starting on page 23 and carrying over to page 24 of the staff report. Staff has been in contact with the nearby property owner who has an access that is being affected by the installation of the raised concrete median. Specifically, the raised median has the effect of modifying access serving the west side of Double Branch Road from a full access commission to a right-in, right-out connection. A clearly encoded understatement of fact. Ironically, the full access that is now being completely blocked was a granted entitlement of this very Board of County Commissioners over 35 years ago. You'll see reference today that in MM 240397 is modifying something that was never fully approved, and that is going back to the map in Exhibit A of 960340. 960340 was about zoning of this property 28 years ago. In 960340 has no specific site plan beyond conceptual, no elevations, no buildings, or approved specific uses. While they refer to 90,000 square foot being allotted, that's based on the zoning, but nothing has come forward to move that forward in the 28 years. The zoning hearing master did not mention that the applicant failed to arrange meeting with the adjoining property owners or the community. At a minimum, this smacks of bad faith by the applicant that predetermines the fact that the county will fail to achieve the best possible financial outcome for our community. We have only one shot to get this right, and one shot only on the developer's dime. Even the staff has coded that developer intentions are woefully short of community needs. At this time, we would like to present one of two options. Option one, that MM 240397 be continued until a community meeting be held per the required terms of the application's intended good faith. Or two, we offer up an agreement to support conditional approval as stipulated today on the proviso that the applicant agrees to take whatever steps necessary to accommodate a 5-car stacking left turn lane into the church add 2 full lanes and improve Double Branch Road, move the current traffic standard pole on Hillsborough to accommodate those added lanes, and require the east side of Double Branch Road add a stormwater sump, retaining wall to the developer's property while eliminating the ill-placed partial right turn lane from Double Branch. But above all, please return our more than 3-decade-old entitlement to full access.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? We got 5 minutes left, so please use your time accordingly. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Rob Scarallo. I'm the senior pastor of Grace and Faith Church, which is on the corner of Double Branch Road, opposite Wawa. And as we've stated in the past, our concern is the fact that now that this medium is there, if you are turning onto Double Branch Road heading north to the right, you have Millworks, which has a number of semi-trailers coming and going. There's a stop sign at that intersection. All you need is one semi-trailer stop there, and because of the medium, no one else can pass. They say they put the medium there so that there wouldn't be a backup into the intersection of Hillsborough Avenue. I want you to know that despite the fact that you pay for experts to survey that area, I live there. I mean, I'm there till midnight. I'm there at 6 a.m. in the morning. I see what goes on at this intersection, and I can tell you firsthand from somebody who didn't sit there for one day recording what traffic goes by, somebody who is there all the time, you're going to have a backup of traffic, more so because any cars coming behind the truck trying to turn right will not be able to get into the left-hand turning lane. On top of that, if we were to turn left, the city already approved a development that has a warehouse that has 50 truck bays. I don't see how with that medium there, anyone's going to be able to get past one truck, and how it's not going to create backup into the intersection and create a bigger problem. For some reason, and I don't know how this happens, we're having a hearing about the housing that's going to go in. We never had a hearing about the Wawa going in the first place. I am a church, and it seems like no one takes any notice of us. They do sell alcohol. They're within 500 feet of our premises. We help the community on a regular basis. We would like to work with Wawa. I don't understand how we are jumping forward already to the residential issue of this development, and we were never notified about one meeting about the gas station coming in. I have queries. There was a curb. They have an access on Double Branch. We lost ours. They have an access on Double Branch turning right into Wawa, and there was a curb separating that access, which made the laneway even more narrow. What's amazing to me, and I don't understand how this works, and maybe you could explain it to a simple person like me. A dump truck or a cement truck or an asphalt truck comes to put material in that right lane turnway into Wawa, and he backs up over the curb, blows his tire, and can't get moved, and they remove that entire curb in one day without a city meeting, without a council hearing, and now they've paved the whole thing, and the curb that was supposed to be there and was going to be there is gone. So like magic, that can disappear. But like magic, to my disadvantage, and 400 members of our congregation, a medium appears, and now I only have access from Hillsborough through our back driveway.
I don't think let you know we got 90 seconds left, and I don't know if these folks want to speak too, so please use your time.
I give my time over.
All right, thank you. Next speaker. Got a minute 18 seconds.
My name is George Danico. I'm president of the HOA for River Chase. First of all, neither the Wawa nor the apartments were publicized. We had nothing, not a thing. First time I got a call was after the last meeting, and call to see what's your problem. Complete lack of good faith there. 30-year-old plans pulled off the shelf. Got a problem with that. Flood updates have been done twice, okay? While I was unable to count the parking spots, I can't find any way that 220 apartments are going to be able to park 400 to 600 cars in that spot. Where are they going to put them? Can't put them on the roof. The ingress and egress are going to create major traffic implications. That Mill 360, that is directly across from the other ingress. He wasn't kidding. It's literally across from that. The semis are going to be coming out and the cars are going to be coming out. Not going to work. The runoff, we had some major rains recently, or actually even a 3/4 of an inch. Did this. And that way you can see a little bit of the thing that's in there. Buildings in the area are not 5 or 6 stories. There is the only buildings that are.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the comments. This time, thank you, sir. Applicant has a 5-minute rebuttal.
Sure, Gardner 400 North Ashley Drive. Just real quick, I think we're mixing apples and oranges here with respect to the improvements on Double Branch. None of that has anything to do with our rezoning request. What triggered that, and you can ask your staff this as well, because it was primarily led by them. And to be clear, the multifamily side, this parcel 2, is also negatively impacted by these transportation improvements. But what triggered it is the Wawa that was built, which was done pursuant to the 1996 PD approval. So there was no request that was even needed for that. Yes, it's an old PD, but those were the entitlements that were given, and that's how this was developed. So that, and then secondly, as Addie showed, with overall transportation being the primary concern, just wanted to repeat again that the substitution of the 220 units, should that be the development that moves forward, is a reduction in traffic when compared to the 80,000 square feet of commercial general entitlements that still sit there under this 1996 PD. So I think that really kind of sums up where things were. Want to let you know there was absolutely no bad faith at all. Unfortunately, with these transportation improvements, those were not required to be notified. That was a trigger that was hit with the county when the Wawa was developed. So just wanted to be clear on that, and happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Planning Commission.
Thank you. Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Office Commercial 20 Future Land Use category. The site is in the urban service area, and the subject property is located within the limits of the Town and Country Community Plan and the Northwest Area Community Plan. The site is currently mostly vacant, with one of the uses under construction. There's also vacant land to the north, south, east, and west, along with single-family uses. Multifamily residential is located to the east and west of the subject site. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element Objective 1 and Policy 1.4, as the proposed uses will complement the existing development pattern surrounding the subject site. The OC20 future land use category allows for the consideration of community commercial type uses, office uses, mixed use developments, and compatible residential uses. The proposed commercial general uses and multifamily residential may be considered in the OC20 future land use category, and therefore is consistent with the development expected in this category. Section D of the Northwest Area Community Plan is to ensure social and economic viability and sustainability by requiring a range of housing suitable for younger and older people, in addition to housing for families within the neighborhood. The proposed multifamily residential development provides for a different housing option that would benefit the community and is consistent with this vision. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed modification consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the applicant's request for a major modification to Plan Development 96-340 to allow a second development option on Parcel 2 consisting of up to 220 residential multifamily dwelling units. The commercial general entitlements approved under the existing PD zoning would also remain as a development option for Parcel 2. The applicant had requested an administrative variance applicable to option 2 for access spacing on Memorial Highway, which the county engineer found to be approvable. The applicant requested an administrative variance applicable to option 2 for access spacing on Double Branch Road, also found by the county engineer to be approvable. The design exception request applicable to option 2 for substandard roadway improvements on Memorial Highway was also reviewed by the county engineer and found to be approvable, as well as a design exception applicable to substandard roadway improvements on Double Branch Road. The zoning hearing master considered the record and found that the proposed major modification is in compliance with and furthers the intent of the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and is also consistent with the Land Development Code, and therefore recommended approval of the request.
Okay, I'm going to board discussion. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Yes, thank you. So as they mentioned about the commercial concerns of generating more traffic, well, I believe that would depend on the type of commercial, because most likely it would be people that were living in that area already anyway, or traveling that road. And my real big concerns are with the traffic, and also they mentioned about the narrow lanes. It's very concerning to me, and I just cannot support this for those reasons. And it was amazing to hear that there was already issues with the wipeout of the trucks. It was just absolutely horrible. So I really can't support this.
Okay, Commissioner Wostel.
Thank you, Pastor, for coming. I drive by your church almost daily. My friend owns a business right behind you. The challenge here is that you get these PDs that were approved in 1996. We get surprise ones like this often. We get some from 1970s that was kind of used in a way that none of us agreed with semi-recently, and they're there, and once their property is entitled, it's entitled. They're going to build whatever's already approved, and if you try to stop them, they'll just sue the county. Then we're going to spend your tax dollars defending a case that we're probably going to lose as well in courts because they already have entitled property rights, and then the court's going to send it back to here and order us to approve whatever was entitled on the property. So either way, it's either you're going to possibly get some apartments or you're going to get 80,000 square feet of commercial space that's already fully entitled on the property, and it might not be ideal. With that being said, I do want to understand more, Mr. Gormley. I have driven by these medians. I never thought much of them, other than I thought it was very poorly engineered. It was confusing, just because I drive down that road so often and they were there all of a sudden. So what can we do about that to make sure that that access point is improved?
In terms of maintaining the ability for a left turn?
Whatever it is, it's done very poorly right now. It's an odd median right there, and it's a harsh turn. It's a short little strip of road. So is the plan to keep it?
Commissioner, yes, the current plan is to keep it. The Wawa construction plans call for that to be installed, and the design exception that the applicant submitted with this application also requires that concrete median be installed. So if the board is inclined to approve this and wants to maintain some flexibility as to how that intersection is maintained.
Wawa asked for it, so it's...
It was required as part of the Wawa construction plan review, and the thought behind it was that the driveway on the west side of Double Branch was close enough to Hillsborough that it caused a concern that cars turning onto Double Branch from Hillsborough, making a left into the church, would have the potential for causing backup that would affect Hillsborough Avenue. That was the thought process behind it. The design exception that's referenced in these conditions includes a requirement with this zoning that concrete median be installed. So right now it's a permit condition. The zoning would make it a zoning condition. So if there was
So it's
desire for some flexibility. Sorry.
So the response is that we're doing this for the Wawa and to the negative of the other businesses that are already existing.
And it was required as part of the development of the Wawa.
We required it.
Yes, we required it. I understand that there are concerns with it, concerns with Double Branch. I would suggest that if the board wanted to continue to have us have the ability to look at that, the condition in this rezoning, if the board is inclined to approve this, that calls for the raised median, have a disclaimer unless otherwise approved. That will give some flexibility if there's desire to look at that construction of the median. Without that, it would become a zoning condition, a hard and fast condition.
I definitely think that it needs to be left flexible because it's just poorly designed. I don't know what else to say about it. And I think too, the impact fees were mentioned, but we're constantly reminding folks that we've got impact fees at 100% of the studied rates. Do we know the total impact fees that this developer is having to pay for this development? They're not based off of 1996 impact fees, right? They have to pay the modern cost.
It is based on the current impact fee schedule. The estimate that was done based on a 1,200 square foot multifamily 1 to 2 story use would be a total impact, this is mobility fee, of 1.465 million is the estimated.
Okay, so 1.5 million, and that's going to be required for the mobility improvements to that intersection right there?
It will be required of the, development will be required to pay that. Those funds are then paid to the county and they're programmed for capital projects. The project itself doesn't have an allocation of the mobility fees per se. It's simply paid to the county.
Okay. I would prefer that be left flexible for us to review that raised median, Mr. Gardner, if that's amenable.
Great points raised, and I just wanted to be clear to the board that we would be fully supportive of that amendment, as Mr. Gormley mentioned, of having that be flexible. As I mentioned, we've been working with Commissioner Cohen's office, have also been working with transportation, certainly don't want to cause any harm to these surrounding businesses. As I mentioned, it also impairs the potential for the multifamily access too. Obviously, we want this to be a safe situation, but happy to continue to work with staff. And I think Mr. Gormley's idea of having that condition be made flexible is something we'd fully support. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both.
Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Wastall, thank you for your framing of that, because I think you framed it exactly correctly in terms of what our questions are today. It's important, I think, that we recognize that this issue about the transportation improvements is really separate from the larger issue that we're being asked to decide here. And so when my office was reached out to, it was basically help us with this issue that's really outside the rezoning application. And so we got in touch with staff and asked that it be looked at. And perhaps this is not the first time this has happened, where something has been put in that's inadvertently or incorrectly blocked somebody else's access. And we've actually gone so far as to have medians taken out in the past when they've been looked at and reassessed. So my sense is that we should leave it flexible, but we could even add to the motion that, giving our staff a directive to specifically address this issue and look to taking it out or making some changes. I don't think we have to be passive. I think we can assert a little bit more, of our preference that the church's concerns be directly addressed.
Adam, do any issues with us giving that direction?
No, sir, and I would just add that the condition that I'd recommend be modified is condition 22, has language that requires installation of a 3-foot wide raised concrete median with a portion of the roadway as shown on the construction plans approved via PI 6213, and add to that unless otherwise approved, and that will provide that flexibility in that condition. And I understand that the intent behind this is, and certainly take any other direction, but understand the intent is to look at this situation and seeing if the challenges that were discussed here can be alleviated and still maintain an appropriate.
Because the requirements of a PD 30 years ago, you know, they're obviously enforceable, but we need to use some common sense and update the plan based on current conditions on the ground.
Okay, Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, sir. I'm specifically asking questions around, a couple people talked about the noticing. Can you just tell me when this was noticed? Because it would have been before my time and before Commissioner Bowles' time. Help me understand why they feel like they weren't properly noticed.
Yeah, I can speak to the notice that's required. Maybe I'll step back and look at the notice for, or the development of the Wawa, which perhaps was the focus. So the Wawa parcel was approved for development in the plan development already.
That's correct.
So the development process for uses that are allowed within the zoning do not require a mailed or posted or published public notice.
Understood.
So we do make those, we have a viewer that shows projects that are being done, but there is no public notice required for site development projects such as the Wawa. So that would be the explanation as to why no notice was provided.
Thank you for clarifying that. My second set of questions was really around the same thing, the median, so it looks like we're going to address that. But I just wanted to clarify, when the pastor spoke, he said they couldn't enter the church from the street. They can, so long as they're traveling southbound, yes?
Yes.
So it's only if they were attempting to go...
If they're going southbound...
If they're coming from Hillsborough and make the right, they cannot access the front of the church. They would have to go to Memorial, make a left, and come in the side access he was referring to, yes?
Sorry, we can't speak from the audience.
For Memorial, then, if he were, say, they were coming from either direction on Memorial and were to go south on Double Branch, they could still enter through the main entrance to the campus.
Go right in on the southbound to Hillsborough.
Okay. Yep.
So Adam, is it
That answers my questions. I just wanted, it looks like we're going to address the median as a whole anyways and any future uses, but thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
So Adam, is the appropriate way to address the median issue is just to approve with an amended condition 22, just to add, what's the language, unless otherwise approved?
Unless otherwise approved, yes. Yes,
Right.
sir. That'd be the correct, that would be a way that will provide latitude. It won't be an absolute requirement of the zoning, and it will give the ability to look at that issue and not have a zoning condition constrain any decisions that might be made.
Okay, can we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner Cohen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Wostel?
I just wanted to clarify that they cannot enter where that median was put. They have to go all the way down Double Branch off of Memorial. Then they have to either make a really harsh U-turn to try and stay on Double Branch to get into that exit, into the entrance, or they have to take a left on Memorial and come through the back of the plaza and then drive back around to the front. That's the only two access points. You can't currently access it with that new raised median.
Not going northbound on Memorial. If I wasn't clear, I'm sorry. If they're going southbound on Double Branch.
Yeah, if they came all the way from Memorial, but
they could make the right end.
anybody coming from Hillsborough can't.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
All right, F3.
The next item is agenda item F3, rezoning standard 24-0862. The request is for a rezoning of a 1.6 acre parcel that's located on the north side of US 92 in the Seffner Mango area, east of Williams Road and west of County Road 579. The request is to rezone the parcel of commercial general to a commercial intensive with restrictions. The restrictions limits the site to the open storage and the use of the site for a towing company. Staff is not supportive of this. It's based on transportation issues regarding adequacy of access to US 92, which is regulated by FDOT, and receiving comments from FDOT saying having concerns at this point with this proposed use and whether or not it can be adequately designed in a manner to allow for them to issue a permit for access to US 92, and based on that, we're not supportive of it, and again, not based on compatibility by that issue, and likewise, the hearing officer also recommended denial based on that. Planning Commission did find it consistent, but it's not related to that transportation issue also. So we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Excuse me. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. I'm here today with Mr. and Mrs. Creech, who will have a few comments for you. This is RZ Standard 24-0862. This is located in the Seffner Mango area. And as you can see on the mapping on Highway 92, this is the parcel as it exists per the property appraiser. The Planning Commission found the site consistent. We've had no citizen or neighborhood comments or opposition of any kind through the entire process. We do some restrictions, which are very important. We're restricting the use to one use, open storage of domestic vehicles in conjunction with a towing company. Mr. and Mrs. Creech run a small business, which is a towing company, and they have a number of sites. This would be a bit of an increase or growth of their business. That use is quiet. It's extreme low trips. There's no infrastructure, extremely low activity. What we've also done in working with the Planning Commission is that the front 1.06 acres will be rezoned, leaving the northern half as it exists. So when you look at the site on the zoning map, I think it's important, first of all, that we're zoned CG on one side and CI is located on the other side. CI is commercial intensive. That is the most intensive commercial category that you can have. And we're zoned commercial general now. So it's a very intensive area, and it's commercial general across the street. So originally when we came in, we were going to leave this rear area, AS1, and leave that. But and this being the site. But as we worked with the Planning Commission, they came forward and said, gee, we'd like to see more of a buffer screening it back. So myself and the Creeches were happy to work with the Planning Commission. And so the application today is only for this front portion, as I indicated, which would be commercial intensive, restricted. It runs along that lot line that you see is CI. So that gives us great buffering and screening to the rear, even though we have not heard from any residents or citizens, of 210 feet approximately, which is AS1, leaves us plenty of room for any kind of buffering. And then on the west is a public land strip, approximately 56 feet wide, more or less, which gives us great buffering and screening on that side. And you can see that's an extreme forested area. Now, when you pull back a little bit, you'll see that the CI and CG categories are all along the category, or excuse me, along the corridor. The entire corridor is CG or CI. CG being commercial general, CI being commercial intensive, which is again the most intensive commercial category. Under the future land use overlay map, we are SMU6. SMU6 is an intensive category. It allows light industrial, multi-purpose, research parks, neighborhood commercial, and you can see that there's another category to the east, CMU12, which is another very intensive category. So this is an intensive corridor, both by zoning and by future land use. Even pulling back further, you can see the intensity of the future land use categories. Now, the zoning department, in their report, do note and do state and support that, or they have that same finding that's located along a commercial corridor with various general intensive commercial uses. and they review the CG and the CIs. Now, just when you look at the aerial, you can see that there's a lot of exterior outdoor uses occurring along Highway 92. And Highway 92 is a very intensive roadway, 12,400 vehicles per day. It is officially a principal state arterial roadway, which is the highest classification on Hillsborough County roadway functional classifications. And under the comprehensive plan, there's a number of policies that apply very well. Under the transportation element is to offer incentives for higher land use densities and intensities along transit emphasis corridors, which is what we're asking for today. Sefner-Mango Community Plan notes commercial development should be directed to US 92 and Martin Luther King. So in the entire Sefner-Mango community, there's only 2 roadways that are designated for this kind of use, and we clearly are one of them, and that is a major goal of the community plan. One of the strategies of the community plan is to recognize commercial character of US 92 as well. That's emphasized by the community plan, and also support infill development, redevelopment within the urban service area. Now, the Planning Commission supports the request, and we're glad to have their support. They note it's consistent, it's with the existing development pattern, supports the vision of the community plan, allows for development that is consistent and is compatible with the development pattern in the surrounding area. Now, in regard to FDOT Transportation Department, this is a standard zoning application. It's not a site plan application. There's no transportation analysis required or filed. That would be the next step. They will have to go to FDOT. They will have to go through permitting. This is just a zoning standard approval. It's not a site plan approval. FDOT envisions a large, long, multi-car carriers, which is not the use here. This is just a simple towing company. And there are potentially many solutions to those issues, which will have to be determined and will have to be approved. They could find adjacent access. A transportation engineer is going to be hired and work with FDOT, and we have confidence that they'll work through those issues. They also question the restriction to single use, which we don't agree with, but that's one thing that the departments have looked at. Now, when you look at the county transportation report, there's a very low impact, and for the commissioners, I think this is very important for the transportation issues. For 24 hours, because of the restricted use, there were only 34 trips in a 24-hour period. 2 in the AM, 2 in the peak AM. And per your county transportation report, and commissioners, this is an important point, per your staff, this is a reduction of 4,666 trips compared to what the zoning is today in terms of the most impactful use. That's from your staff. So when you hear that there's transportation issues, we would suggest this restricted use is 4,660 times better than what could occur today under the regular zoning. Under the ZHM report, ZHM notes that the applicant will have to submit for permits and address any issues. As prior standard zoning, I'm sorry, those are my comments, will have to submit for permits and address any issues. I will say that the Creaches have been very involved with the county for a long time, and they have very good references. This is from Lieutenant David Fry, Florida Highway Patrol. They've been with the FHP at this point for 2 years. They provide excellent service to the public, operate in several zones. They keep their trucks presentable, background checks and driver's license. And also from Sheriff Chad Cronister's office, from Melissa Brewster, who takes care of the Department of Vehicle Impounding Officer, that she notes since 1997. They've been an asset to the agency and operate in several zones. So in summary, this is a reduced, reshaped area of rezoning. We've increased the buffers and screening. It's a use that is extreme low intensity, activity and trips. The only thing lower use would probably be a cell tower. Supported by the adjoining and nearby zoning and roadway intensity. Supported by the intensive future land use category. Your Planning Commission supports. The Sefner-Mango plan supports. They have a great operating history, and as of today, as I checked again yesterday, there have been no neighbor concerns or citizens' concerns. Mr. Chairman, we would allow the Creaches to make a couple comments, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am Linnell Creech. This is my husband, Dennis. We're at the 12222 US 92, Sefner, Florida, 33584. We are here this morning asking for your help and to impress the importance of the application to us, our family, and our business. My husband and I run a small business. It's our family's livelihood, and the property represents a bit of growth to us. When we saw the site, we thought that it made perfect sense. Literally next door is a storage salvage yard, and that is a direct neighbor to us. And next to that is an open storage area. So we thought it made perfect sense to use this location. Of course, we've heard that we've had no opposition. We actually have had people come to us, neighbors, saying how happy they were because apparently there was a homeless camp there. So we've helped clean up. We had 2 dumpsters full of trash, used needles. We've had everything discarded and cleaned up. We put up a black fence, a fence with black meshing. We've put the entrance back so it would not affect any cars coming in. I know they were concerned about the tow truck blocking any traffic. The entrance is actually back, so it's not going to stop any traffic at all. We were happy to work with the Planning Commission. I know they had some concerns, and we worked together to try to make it work and be proposed what would make the best sense for everybody. Again, it is a quiet, low trip. We have 20 cars per week that go to that location. And there's no infrastructure that has to change. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you for your comments. Time's up.
Time's up,
Time's
Mr.
up.
Chairman. Thank you.
All right, anyone in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt. For the record, Planning Commission staff, the subject property is located in the suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area, and it's also located within the limits of the Seffner-Mango Community Plan. Adjacent to the subject site's northeastern boundary is a parcel that has 2 zoning districts. On the northern portion of this parcel is AS1 zoning district, and the southern portion is commercial general or CG. However, the entire parcel has a current use of a mobile home park. The applicant has proposed the commercial intensive rezoning area to be located away from and not adjacent to the residential uses to the east. And by doing this, the request maintains the existing CI zoning pattern to the east and is compatible with the adjacent land uses in the surrounding development pattern. The comprehensive plan requires that all development meet or exceed the land development regulations in Hillsborough County. However, at the time of uploading of this report, transportation comments were not yet available in optics and thus not taken into consideration for analysis of this request. The subject site is not required to meet commercial locational criteria in accordance with Objective 22 of the future land use element. Typical uses within this category are residential, suburban scale neighborhood commercial uses, office uses, and light industrial uses. Neighborhood serving commercial uses are required to meet locational criteria or be part of a larger mixed-use plan development. The applicant is proposing uses that are more intensive than neighborhood serving commercial uses and are therefore not subject to these requirements. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of the Seffner-Mango Community Plan. Per the community plan, goal 3 is to direct commercial development to the US 92 and Martin Luther King Boulevard corridors with strategies to support that goal by supporting infill development and redevelopment within the urban service area and supporting office and light industrial uses along US 92 and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard between Interstate 75 and County Road 579, which is also Mango Road. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of the subject property, which is consisting of approximately 1.06 acres situated on the north side of Highway 92, west of County Road 579 and east of Williams Road and Seffner. The applicant's request is to rezone the property to CI restricted to allow open storage of domestic vehicles in conjunction with the vehicle towing operation. The property is located on a commercial corridor along Highway 92, which the general area of which consists of a mix of residential and non-residential uses, including intensive commercial uses along US Highway 92, Adjacent properties include a residential mobile home park to the north and east, commercial business to the east, utility line construction business to the south, a 56-foot wide public lands corridor to the west, and a motel further west. Hillsborough County Transportation staff stated objections based in part on comments received from the Florida Department of Transportation related to the subject property's access to US Highway 92. The Transportation Review Staff Report states, FDOT expressed safety and operational concerns related to the ability of tow trucks or car carriers to enter and exit the subject parcel, and concerns related to an existing guardrail and the subject parcel's limited frontage along US Highway 92. The Transportation Review Staff Report also states that the subject property cannot meet minimum access spacing requirements. Development Services Department staff found the proposed rezoning is not supportable. Staff noted additional information is necessary to determine whether the proposal can be supported, and the applicant did not provide the requested additional information. The zoning hearing master concluded that the proposed rezoning would not meet the requirements of the Land Development Code related to access, and is therefore not in compliance with and does not further the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, and recommended denial.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Thank you. Yes, so it is consistent with the plan, and as we've mentioned here already and heard, that it's the neighboring property is already zoned CI and CG, and with the low trips, low activity, I will support the small business owner and wish them much success in their business.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Just one quick question to Mr. Pressman. In the application, you mentioned that they still had to seek approval from FDOT. What was the reason they could not get approval from FDOT prior to coming to this meeting this morning?
Well, this again is a standard application. And after it was filed, we got some comments from FDOT on concerns of access. And to the best of my memory, as I'm recalling, is I believe I did have one virtual meeting with them. But our position was that the amount of trips are thousands times less than what would be incurred. We wanted to go through the zoning step, and FDOT has full power and control following, if zoning is approved, if they're going to issue a permit. There's a high cost, and that's just the reality. There's a high cost to bring in transportation engineers and studies and analysis. So myself and the Creeches, not being big developers or very active in terms of development, chose to take this step forward with zoning first, and then they will have to go to FDOT, and they'll have to present a plan, and they'll have to get a permit from FDOT. So we chose to take it in a step function, if I'm answering your question. But I will say that, in my opinion, it's a bit of a bureaucratic overreach, because we are at a standard zoning process, and if FDOT did not have full power and authority in the future to review and approve, then that would be another story.
Okay, staff, help me out with this. Because if we approve today, or we deny today, and it go to, well, if we did deny, they have no reason to go to FDOT. Am I correct?
Unless that was the reason for denial and there was desire to try to resolve the access issue with FDOT. The way I understand FDOT's comments were being presented was it is a standard zoning district, but there's only one use allowed. So there's only one, by the application, there's only one use that could be permitted on the site. My belief is that FDOT feels that they would be constrained to not grant access if there was only one for this use, if it's the only use that could be put on the property. We'll note that their comments did state that the access spacing is substandard, and that they were not able to say at this time that they were not able to provide specific comments on the proposed use of the parcel for lack of a auto turn analysis. So,
And I think that's real critical to us approving this, even though I support small business, but I would like to know the final decision from FDOT on this case here. Is it any way we might can revisit this or remand to get where this can go to FDOT and then come back to us? I don't know, I'm just asking, so help me out.
a remand would be available if the board was inclined to try to get that, give an opportunity to get that information from DOT. Remand would be an appropriate way to do that. It would open the record back up, and that information could be added and may in fact change the recommendations.
Okay. I'll wait to hear from other staff. I don't want to hold up the process, but I do think with FDOT owns the road and the here, that's critical to this process. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're in charge of zoning. It's FDOT can approve or decline the application. That's really their prerogative. We have a past history of supporting small businesses. Most recently was that dilapidated tire shop where they had the weird access point. So I will move for approval, and then FDOT can figure out whatever they need.
Okay, we got a motion approved by Commissioner Waltz, second Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Bowles.
Commissioner Whistle made my point. That's a good thing.
Okay. Commissioner Cohen?
I just have a question for staff on this. I mean, don't these people, they have to have access to their property, right? I mean, there has to be some access granted to them, right?
Yes, and I think that's the sensitivity, is that there's only one use that could be permitted on the site. So if the dynamics of that use can't be accommodated by the site, they need to be provided access. So I think that's where the sensitivity, if this was a standard zoning district, I don't believe this would be an issue, because it'd be a spectrum of uses that could be considered. But in this case, it's standard district, but it's standard to only one particular use. That's the basis for the staff comments.
Yeah, I think I agree with Commissioner Wastel. I honestly think that it's in FDOT's hands to decide what to do. And, you know, we have no reason not to approve this short of whatever it is that they're going to do. And I would hate to, I don't think we should put the applicant through having to come back through here again. So I'll be supportive.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wolstel, second Commissioner Miller. No one else in the queue. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
All right, next
I
item.
apologize. I just need to make a correction to the previous item, item F2. The vote count was 6-0 or 6-1, and Commissioner Cameron Cepeda voted no.
F4.
Next item, agenda item F4, rezoning PD 24-0789. It's a request to rezone a 2.94 acre parcel on the south side of East Sly Avenue, east of Orient Road, west of US 301, in the East Orient Park area, to rezone it from ASC 1 to a planned development for 24 townhomes. Staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the hearing officer is also recommending approval. Staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, the applicant here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jesse Blackstock with Blackstock Engineering for the applicant, 1646 West Snow Avenue. The applicant and owner is also here. Christopher Schrock is in attendance as well. So as, let me see, what's next? Just down, sorry. There we go. What am I hitting? Just hitting the arrows, right? So as staff was saying, so this is a 2.94 acre site located at 7805 East Sly Avenue in Tampa. The current use is a vacant agricultural land. The current zoning is ACS 1
and the future land use is CMU 12. The project is located within East Lake Orient Park community planning area, and the purpose of the PD is to rezone this to allow for a total of 24 townhome units. That would be fee simple, which results in about an 8.16 dwelling units per acre, which compared to the 12 per units of the CMU 12, we are greatly lower than the allowed per land use. There have been recent rezonings and PDs to our east. Most recently, there was one that was done this past year, and it's immediately to our east. Adjacent to our site beyond that, we have to the south, we have RSC 6 zoning, and to our west, we have RSC 4 as well as ASC 1, and then to our north, on the other side of the right-of-way of Sly Avenue, we have a ASC 1 as well. As I was saying, the site is proposing 24 townhomes, which results in an 8.16 dwelling units per acre. There are EPC/SWIFMA jurisdictional wetlands on site, which have been reviewed and approved by EPC, and we are not proposing any impacts associated with our development, which is significant. And the third bullet down here, I'll kind of emphasize. We went through several sufficiency rounds with staff, mainly to do with the dead-end road that we have at our site. It's a private internal driveway. At one point, we were going to propose a cut through to the PD to our east, which would be, mostly the way we would design these types of things. But unfortunately, due to the size and significance of the wetland, we had to do a turnaround. So we have a type T turnaround dead-end movement. The unit sizes as proposed will be a minimum of 19 by 42, which are proposed at a 3-story height, and they will meet the minimum depth requirements of the Land Development Code. The site is providing the minimum 5-foot required type A buffer along the perimeter of the PD to our adjacent SFR uses and to the south and east of our site. One specific waiver request we did ask of staff was, with the maximum height being 35 feet, we are typically required to have a 2-to-1 setback for any height, vertical height of the building above 20 feet. We asked that to be waived. The main reason for that being is if we were to provide that, we would have a hard time fitting these number of units on this property with trying to maintain 0 wetland impacts, which is in that large wetland system to the northeast of the site. This site is in the city of Tampa, so it will be served by sewers, water, and by the city of Tampa. In terms of off-site developer commitments, we are mimicking or mirroring what is proposed from the PD to our immediate east. So that consists of a 5-foot sidewalk that would start to our west of our site, which is a little west of Oakdale Drive, and then that would continue all the way over and across the front of our property, and then across again to the frontage of the other PD that was just approved recently for townhomes as well. That consists of about 1,650 linear feet of 5-foot sidewalk, which would be along the south side of Sly. And then, just in summary, it's a pretty straightforward project, but the property is currently zoned ASC 1 with a future land use of CMU 12. The proposed zoning is a planned development to allow for up to 24 townhomes per the attached plan. The project density is 8.16 units, which again is significantly lower than the 12 units per acre that you would potentially gain approval for based on the future land use that it is currently, the CMU 12. There are additional townhome projects being proposed to our immediate east and additional single-family subdivisions being proposed to the south of this project. The project has been found consistent with a comprehensive plan, and the project is not within a special zone or a coastal high hazard area or a cultural resource zone or surface water resource protection zone. The project does not have designated historical landmarks or other historical or archaeological sites within the PD boundary or within 150 feet of the boundary. The project is also not within a scenic corridor, which Sly is not deemed as one. The project will not be gated, but in the event it would have to follow, obviously, Hillsborough County's transportation technical menu. But again, the site is not being proposed as a gated subdivision. So with that, I would just respectfully ask for the commissioners' vote for approval today. And again, the applicant is here in case you need any questions for us. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Are anyone here in support of the application? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located in the Community Mixed Use 12 Future Land Use category. The site is in the urban service area and also located within the limits of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The CMU 12 Future Land Use category allows for the consideration of residential, community-scale commercial, office, and light industrial uses. Residential uses may be considered in this future land use category, and therefore the proposed plan development is consistent with the development expected in the CMU 12 future land use category. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element objective 16 and its accompanying policies related to compatibility. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is mostly comprised of a mix of uses with single-family uses in the immediate area. The proposed plan development will complement the surrounding area land uses. The site also meets the intent of the goals and strategies of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan. The transportation goal under the plan ensures a balanced transportation system that reflects the community's character and provides for options including walking, biking, and transit. The proposed residential development will propose one full two-way access off of Sly Avenue, and sidewalks will also be installed along both sides of the internal local roadways per the Hillsborough County Land Development Code requirements. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the rezoning of the subject property, which consists of approximately 2.94 acres of undeveloped land at 7805 East Sly Avenue. The applicant's request is to rezone the property to planned development to allow a townhome development of up to 24 units. The property is designated CMU 12 on the future land use map and zoned ASC 1, with the general area of the property consisting of residential, manufacturing, a school, a place of worship, and undeveloped parcels. Adjacent parcels include Sly Avenue and a large undeveloped parcel zoned ASC 1 to the north, undeveloped parcel zoned for single-family conventional duplex and townhome uses to the east, residential single-family parcel zoned ASC 1 and RSC 6 mobile home to the south, and residential single-family parcel zoned RSC 4 to the west. The applicant is proposing a building height of up to 35 feet with 3 stories. The proposed height and setbacks don't comply with the 2.2 to 1 additional setback for structures over 20 feet in height, and the applicant is requesting a waiver. The justification for the waiver of the additional setback is that the property's developable area is constrained by the presence of wetlands, site improvement requirements for internal circulation, and stormwater management, excuse me, as well as building separation. This was found to be an approvable request. Development Services Department staff found that the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area and recommended approval. The zoning hearing master concluded that the proposed plan development rezoning is in compliance with and furthers the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and is consistent with the land development code, and recommended approval.
And what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Got a motion to approve, Commissioner Cohen.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on F4.
Motion carried 7-0.
Next item.
Commissioners, next item is agenda item F5, rezoning standard 24-0918. This is a request to rezone a 2.75 acre parcel in the Carrollwood Nortdale area east of Lake Magdalene on Leisure Avenue. The request is rezoned from residential single-family conventional 4, which provides for minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, to residential single-family 6, which allows for a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. There is a restriction offered by the applicant limiting the density of this project to 4 units per acre, which is consistent with the underlying residential 4 future land use classification in this area. Staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it consistent with the plan, and the hearing officer also recommended approval. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant here? Morning, sir.
McFarlane, Ferguson, McMullen on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is also here. Just very briefly, I've put the conceptual site plan on the overhead. As you know, this is not the site plan approval step, so this is not regulatory, but it's a depiction of what this request is. We're simply asking to rezone the property from RCS 4 to RCS 6 with restrictions. That restriction would be to limit the density to the current allowed 4 dwelling units per acre under the existing land use of residential 4. All we're doing is reducing the minimum minimum lot size from 10,000 square feet to 7,000 square feet, keeping the density restriction. So we only yield 11 units, which is what would be allowed by right now under the current zoning, but it gives us sufficient room for the traffic engineering and the stormwater retention, as you can see on the conceptual site plan. We did receive some neighbor inquiries, but those were mostly in the nature of questions, whether they're going to be multifamily townhomes, which they are not. They're single-family detached dwellings. What the minimum rear setback is, it's 25 feet, and the maximum height is 35 feet. As you all know well. So those were the questions we received at the zoning master hearing. We do believe it's supportable as found by the staff, the planning commission, and also by the zoning master. We're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Thank you. Planning Commission staff, please.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the residential 4 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area, and it is also located within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan. The proposed restriction to the zoning category is to limit the development to 4 dwelling units per acre within the RSC 6 development standards per the density maximum that may be considered in the residential 4 future land use category. The proposed rezoning is consistent with development expected in that category. The proposal meets the intent of the neighborhood protection policies under Objective 16 of the future land use element that require new development to be compatible to the surrounding neighborhood. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is single family, and the proposed rezoning will complement that surrounding land use pattern. The Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan states that new development and redevelopment shall use compatibility design techniques to ensure the appearance, mass, and scale of development is integrated within the existing suburban nature of each neighborhood. This restriction to limit the dwelling units to 4 units per acre added to the proposed rezoning will maintain the density expected in the area, and it supports the vision of the Greater Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed modification proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to that restriction. Thank you.
Hearing master.
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of the subject property, which consists of approximately 2.75 acres, situated at 1208 Leisure Avenue in Tampa. The proposed rezoning would be from RSC 4 to RSC 6 with conditions. The property is zoned residential 4 on the future land use map, located within the urban services area and within the boundaries of the Carrollwood-Northdale Community Plan. The area surrounding the property consists of suburban residential uses with RSC 4 and RSC 6 zoning. Adjacent properties include single-family residential parcels with RSC 4 zoning across Leisure Avenue on the north, west, and south, and single-family residential parcels with RSC 6 zoning on the east. The applicant is requesting to rezone to RSC 6 with restrictions which would limit density to 4 units per acre and allow a single-family residential development of up to 11 lots with a minimum lot area of 7,000 square feet. Development Services Department staff found the rezoning to be consistent with the development pattern, zoning districts, and uses in the surrounding area. The zoning hearing master concluded with a recommendation of approval, finding that the record demonstrates that the proposed request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan and land development code.
All right, can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Motion, Commissioner Myers. Do I have a
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on F5.
Motion carried 7-0.
Commissioners, the next item is agenda item F6, rezoning standard 24-1104. This is a request to rezone a 6.12 acre parcel in the East County, southeast of the intersection of County Road 39 and Lithia Pinecrest. Road. The request is to rezone a parcel that has 3 zoning districts, AS1, CN, and AR. The request is rezoned to AS1 and CN. This graphic here shows the current configuration zoning and the proposed zoning on the bottom half of the graphic. The area in yellow would be CN and the area in green would be AS1. Staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission found it consistent with the plan, and the hearing officer also recommended approval. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Is the applicant here?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ryan Manassi with Johnson Pope, Director of Development and Planning, 400 North Ashley Drive, Suite 3100. I have a brief presentation to share with you. So, as Brian stated, we are rezoning from that AR, AS1, and CN to that AS1 and then CN zoning district. The site area is roughly 6.12 acres. We are in the rural service area and the Lithia Southeast County overlay. Additionally, the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan is in effect. To the north, we have CN and AR, south ASC1, east AR, and then west CN. Now, what I did here was just kind of shaded some areas to make it clear. In blue is the existing CN districts that are in the area in this intersection. Yellow and green shaded areas depict the subject site, with the yellow being the proposed CN district. And then the green as our proposed AS1 district, which is the eastern part of the zoning lot. The yellow portion of our request abuts existing CN district to the west. And according to Flu Policy 22.2, sites within the Res 1 Flu category must be within 660 feet of a qualifying intersection. In this case, the qualifying intersection of the subject site is Lithia Pinecrest Road, and the distance from the subject site to the qualifying intersection is roughly 250 feet. Therefore, the request meets the commercial locational criteria. This is more of an aerial view, just showing you some 3D perspective, labeling those roads, the Lithia Pinecrest Road and then the South County Road, which are both considered county arterial roadways. Now, our surrounding uses, starting southeast of the intersection, the yellow star is our subject area. You'll notice the convenience store and the restaurant use. Moving to the northeast area of the intersection is a salon or similar type of CN use. And then to the northwest of the intersection is an existing strip shopping center. And finally, to the southwest is a school. There's numerous comprehensive plan policies that were goals, objectives, and policies that we're consistent with. I will not go through them all, but they were submitted to the record at the zoning hearing master, so they should be part of the backup. And again, I'm sure you don't want me to read 4 slides of policies. Nope. Let's see, you'll notice on page 3 of the PC's report, staff advises the request does not meet the intent, or I'm sorry, does meet the intent of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. And from Development Services staff, our staff indicates this request would create a zoning and development pattern that is consistent with the existing zoning and development pattern. Additionally, staff finds the request compatible with the existing zoning districts and development pattern in the area, therefore finding the request approvable. In conclusion, we had no opposition to our request. Development Services, Planning Commission staff, and also the ZHM recommendation of approval. The proposed CN and AS1 zoning districts are consistent and compatible with the surrounding zoning districts and established uses in the area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Thank you, sir. Any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Planning Commission?
Thank you. For the record, Melissa Leinhardt, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the Residential 1 future land use category. The site is in the rural area, and it is also located within the limits of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The site has a future land use designation of Residential 1, which allows for the consideration of up to 1 dwelling unit per gross acre and a maximum floor area ratio of 0.25. The Residential 1 future land use category is intended to designate areas for rural residential uses and that are compatible with short-term agricultural uses. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element objective 16 and its accompanying policies that require that new development, infill, and redevelopment be compatible with the surrounding area in character, lot size, and density. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is made up of light commercial and single-family uses, as well as vacant lands. The parcel to the immediate west of the subject site has a light commercial use. The subject site meets commercial locational criteria, as the site is located within 660 feet of the nearest qualifying intersection of Lithia Pinecrest Road, which is a 2-lane roadway, and County Road 39, also a 2-lane roadway. The distance from the subject site to the qualifying intersection is roughly 250 feet. Therefore, the site does meet commercial locational criteria. Based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Hearing master.
The zoning hearing master reviewed the proposed rezoning of the subject property, which is zoned 6.12 acres in size and zoned AR, AS1, and commercial neighborhood, CN. The request is to rezone the property to AS1 and CN zoning districts. No waivers are being requested. The zoning hearing master noted that the surrounding parcels are zoned AR and CN to the north, ASC1 to the south, AR to the east, and CN to the west. No opposition testimony was presented at the ZHM hearing. The ZHM's report noted that the applicant's representative testified at the hearing that the property owner also owns the immediate corner parcel and likely will adjoin the properties. He added that the requested CN zoning is the minimum amount needed on site to be less intrusive to adjacent parcels to the east. The zoning hearing master concluded that the rezoning to AS1 and CN is consistent with the development pattern in the area and with the LDC and the comprehensive plan, and concluded with a recommendation of approval.
Okay, can we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Commissioner
Second.
Cohen, second Commissioner Myers. I don't see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on F6.
Motion carried, 6-0.
All right, G1A and G1B.
Next items, Commissioner, are related items G1A and G1B. G1A is rezoning PD 24-0722. This is a request to rezone approximately 3.14 acre parcel from PD and AS1 to a new PD for 16 single-family homes. Again, it has staff founded approval, hearing officer recommended approval, and planning commission found it consistent with a comprehensive plan. G1B is a related PRS application 24-0729. The purpose of PRS, this application is to remove the back half of the parcel, this area in red, that's within the new PD, from the existing PD that's located to the north as shown in the site plan. Again, the purpose of this is to just to modify that plan to have this area removed as part of the action of G1A. Staff is also recommending approval of this, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant here.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. All the agencies and departments are in support. We've had no opposition. I'm going to keep this very brief and just run you through the main points. This is proposed for a single-family development proposed in the Riverview South Shore area of 3.14 acres located on the mapping here. And as Mr. Grady indicated, shown you as well. This involves this application, the next one. The next one just removes item number 3 and puts it in with the plan. So there's 3 parcels, 1, 2, well, 3 parts, 1, 2, and 3. Both these applications work together. Issues from AS1 to PD, again for single-family residential. Zoning map is single-family all the way around. Future land use map, pretty much the same thing. Existing single-family all the way around. This is the PD plan, would be maximum of 16 lots, and that would be, again, similar to what's surrounding. Development standards would be similar to the RSC 10. Planning Commission report notes compatible, meets the intent of some policies. Development services did not see any compatibility concerns. With that, we've received no citizen concerns or opposition through the entire process. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Planning Commission?
Thank you, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. For the record, the subject property is located within the residential 6 and suburban mixed-use 6 future land use categories. The site is in the urban service area, and the subject site is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposal meets the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and its accompanying policies that require new development to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. In this case, the surrounding land use pattern is mostly single family, and therefore the proposed residential use will complement the surrounding area and meets the intent of that policy direction. Goal 2 of the Riverview Community Plan is to reflect the vision of Riverview using the Riverview District Concept Map, which illustrates the unique qualities and land uses related to each geographic area identified as districts. The subject site is in the residential district, which encourages attractive residential development that complements the surrounding character. The proposal meets the intent of Goal 2 of the Riverview Community Plan. Overall, staff finds the proposed use is an allowable use in the residential 6 and SMU 6 categories, is compatible with the existing development pattern found in the surrounding area, and supports the community plan vision. The proposed plan development would allow for development that is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services. Thank you.
Hearing Master.
Excuse me. The zoning hearing master considered the rezoning of the proposed, the proposed zoning of 3 folio parcels with approximately 3.14 acres located at the southwest quadrant of Cali Road and Hampton Hill Drive in Riverview. The general area surrounding the property consists primarily of single-family residential uses. There is a townhome development further west along Bullfrog Creek Road and further east along US Highway 301. Adjacent properties include residential properties zoned AS1, improved with manufactured homes to the south, residential properties zoned AS1 and improved with single-family conventional homes to the west across Cali Road, a residential single-family subdivision and Hampton Hill Drive to the north, and a residential single-family subdivision to the east. The requested rezoning is to subject of the subject property is from PD and AS1 zoning to a planned development, which would allow a single-family residential development of up to 16 lots. The applicant's request is subject to PRS 24729 to remove one folio from PD 07-1767. Development Services staff found the proposed development to be compatible with the surrounding area and found the proposed rezoning approvable subject to conditions. Transportation Review staff stated no objections subject to the conditions set forth in the Transportation Review comment sheet. The zoning hearing master concluded that the proposed plan development rezoning is in compliance with and furthers the intent of the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and is consistent with the Land Development Code and recommended approval.
Okay, we'll defer the vote until after we hear the PRS. Mr. Grady, do you need to introduce that or just go straight to Mr. Pressman?
Again, just for the record, G1B is a PRS 24-0729. As stated earlier, just removing a parcel from the PD as part of a G1A application, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay, Mr. Pressman.
Thank you. For the record, Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. So as staff has indicated, this is a tie-in to the PD that you just saw and is just simply to remove the one small piece and put it into the PD. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any proponent testimony? Anyone in opposition? Can we have a motion for G1A and G1B?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Myers. Don't see anyone in the queue. Please record your vote on G1A and G1B.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right, next item.
Next items are G2A and G2B. Related items, G2A is a rezoning, PD 24-0697. This is a request to rezone 121.7 acre parcel in the Riverview South Shore area. It's on the west side of US 301, south of Big Bend Road, north of Paso Malbar Boulevard. The request is to rezone the balance of the property is a PD that's currently approved for 628 units, allowing for single-family or multifamily uses and an option for 150,000 square feet of commercial. They're adding some additional acreage on the northern portion of the property. The revised PD would basically consist of 713 dwelling units, again, allowing for both single-family and multifamily, and maintaining the option for 150,000 of commercial. Staff is recommending approval. The hearing officer also recommended approval. Planning Commission found it inconsistent with respect to inconsistency with the policy 19.2 within the comprehensive plan, which addresses internal connectivity. And so Planning Commission will certainly address that as part of their comments. G2B is a CDD application to modify the boundaries of the South Creek Community Development District to incorporate additional parcels into the acreage and also remove parcels from the CDD. So staff's available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Applicant here.
Good morning, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Some of it is repetitive, so I will skip through it. This is location. This is just a slide that helps you see what we're modifying. We're adding 14 acres to an existing PD, creating a new pocket 4, and it adds 28 additional units. We are removing a pedestrian bridge, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, and we are not changing any of the existing other development pockets. The approved internal connection right now is in yellow, and it proposes a bridge connection over Bullfrog Creek. We are proposing instead a pedestrian connection that heads west, then north, then back east into the PD. And the reason for this is that the bridge over the wetland to provide pedestrian access internal to the development would cost at least $1.5 million. And it also, you can see, it's environmentally infeasible. There's absolutely no reason to have a pedestrian bridge connecting this development within itself. We already have several connections to the external and internal connections within this development. You can see those, the external connections are the blue circles, the internal connections are the yellow circles. The surrounding area is SMU 6, and you can see that it is very well interconnected. You're connecting a school use to the south, you have residential, you have commercial, and so the intent of the plan was to have the entire category be interconnected, and that's being achieved. So again, we're compliant with the policies in our opinion. Staff says in their staff interpretation, it says we need to have detailed internal relationships and pedestrian integration amongst uses. The comprehensive plan says that the policy shall be reasonably applied where they're economically and environmentally feasible, consistent with the protection of private property rights. Here we have a pedestrian connection bridge that is simply providing an internal connection that is extremely costly and really unnecessary to meet the intent of the policies. We presented this to the zoning hearing master. Both development services and the zoning hearing master agreed that the proposed development is consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan, and we are happy to answer any questions you might have. We did receive some calls on this, but they were really just questions and just wanted to make sure we weren't modifying anything commercial up on the front of US 301. And with that, we'd respectfully request your approval.
Any proponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Planning Commission.
Thank you, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category. The site is in the urban service area, and the subject property is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan as well as the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The proposed plan development with 3 development options, including multifamily, single-family, detached or attached units, and commercial, is compatible with the existing single-family residential character of the area. The applicant requests a maximum of 713 dwelling units, and the SMU 6 future land use category allows for the consideration of up to 6 dwelling units per gross acre. With 121.7 gross acres, up to 730 dwelling units may be considered. The proposed density of 713 dwelling units is under that maximum that may be considered and is therefore consistent with the SMU 6 future land use category. In option A, the applicant is proposing commercial uses in Pocket 1, which is the area along US Highway 301. The site does not meet commercial locational criteria, with the nearest qualifying intersection being located at Balm and US Highway 301, which is approximately 1,500 feet away. Future Land Use Element Policy 22.7 outlines that this is not the only factor to be considered when evaluating non-residential uses. Other considerations could carry more weight than commercial locational criteria and include land use compatibility, adequacy and availability of public services, environmental impacts, adopted levels of service on roadways, and other policy direction in the comprehensive plan. Even though the proposed retail in option A is not located at a commercial node of a major roadway intersection, the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding land uses and is consistent with the future land use category, which promotes mixed-use development. In addition, adding another distinct use beyond the proposed residential uses furthers the intent of mixed-use policy 19.1, which requires that all new larger mixed-use projects in mixed-use plan categories develop with a minimum of 2 distinct land uses. Therefore, Planning Commission staff supports a waiver to commercial locational criteria and recommends the Board of County Commissioners grant a waiver per policy 22.8 of the future land use element. In all options, a pedestrian connection is proposed from Gray Sweat Road extension to Gate Dancer. The proposed connection is in lieu of a pedestrian bridge connection that was previously proposed across Little Bullfrog Creek in Plan Development 19-0445 and was integral to Planning Commission's consistency finding at that time. Furthermore, PRS 20-0388 requested to remove the pedestrian bridge connection from Pod 3, and that was found inconsistent by both Planning Commission staff and subsequently denied by the board. Objective 19 in the future land use element requires that all new developments in mixed-use categories be integrated and interconnected. Furthermore, future land use element policy 19.2 specifies that when multiple uses are included in a project, the development must be implemented through a zoning district that ensures street connectivity, detailed land use descriptions, site placement, access locations, and internal connections. Per this policy direction, rezonings must be approved through a site plan controlled rezoning district in which the site plan demonstrates detailed internal relationships and pedestrian integration among uses. The applicant's narrative reveals that the development only provides pedestrian connections to Gate Dancer Road along the western boundary, lacking the internal connectivity to Pod 3. Consequently, the proposed development is inconsistent with future land use element Objective 19 and Policy 19.2. Though the off-site connection to Pod 3 to the west of the PD supports general connectivity policies in the comprehensive plan, Objective 19 and Policy 19.2 specifically require connectivity be internal to the site. Without that internal connection to Pod 3 within the site plan, the request does not meet this policy direction. And based upon those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Hearing Master.
The zoning hearing master considered the proposed rezoning of the subject property, which consists of several folios with approximately 121.7 acres situated west of South US Highway 301 and Shady Preserve Drive intersection in Ruskin. The applicant's request is for a new PD zoning that integrates 2 additional folio parcels of approximately 14 acres with the parcels included in the property's 19-445 PD rezoning. The general area surrounding the property consists of single-family residential and agricultural uses. The property does not meet locational criteria in the area where commercial uses are proposed as an option. The applicant is requesting a waiver of the commercial locational criteria. As you heard from Ms. Leinhard, Planning Commission has found the proposed use compatible with surrounding land uses and consistent with the SMU 6 future land use category, which promotes mixed-use development. Planning Commission staff therefore support the applicant's request for the waiver and recommend that the board grant it. With regard to the ZHM's review of the access or internal connectivity issue, there was a specific finding made in the conclusion of the zoning hearing master's recommendation. The ZHM found that there is evidence in the record to support a finding that the strict application of future land use objective 19 and policy 19.2 to require a direct internal connection by means of a pedestrian bridge over Little Bullfrog Creek is not a reasonable application of the comprehensive plan and is not an economically or environmentally feasible application of the plan's goals, objectives, and policies. The zoning hearing master concluded that the requested rezoning is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and consistent with the land development code and recommended approval.
We're going to defer this vote until after G2B. Does staff need to introduce that?
Again, item G2B is CDD 24-0950, petition to modify the South Creek Community Development District per the graphic that's being placed on the Elmo. The areas being added to the CDD are the areas in yellow. The red lines are the existing boundaries of the CDD. The area in orange south of Boulevard Creek is being removed from the CDD. Therefore, 25 acres are being added to the CDD and 27 acres are being removed. No objections were received from reviewing agencies, and staff is recommending that the board approve the CDD modification application. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to this item? All right, can we have a motion for both G2A and G2B?
Move for approval.
Motion, Commissioner Myers.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cohen. Please record your vote on both G2A and G2B.
Commissioner Cohen?
Oh, sorry.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right, I1.
Commissioners, I1 is the staff report on the status report of the local act projects within Hillsborough, within the county. The report is updated since September. We've had one additional application submitted for review, and that's the last one on the chart within the report. And it's a 1 acre parcel on Lithia Pinecrest Road. No other applications have been received since the last report was at the September BOCC land use meeting. We're available for any questions.
All right, no questions or comments. Can we just have a motion to accept the report? Motion, Commissioner Miller. Second, Commissioner Myers. Please record your vote on I1.
Motion carried, 7-0.
All right, I2.
I2 is a staff item regarding extension of zoning application deadlines due to storm-related delays. Adam Gormley will speak to this item.
Adam.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item I2, this relates to a request that we've received from Steve Kona with Associated Builders and Contractors. This relates to the timing of zoning applications, rezoning, special use variances. Currently under the Land Development Code, when an application is submitted, a hearing date is assigned, and that application is required to go to hearing within 6 months of that originally signed date or be withdrawn administratively. The code does provide for extensions of that time when a hearing is canceled for an emergency situation, such as the hearings that we canceled in October, added another month to that 6 months. However, that provision relates only to the time of cancellation, and it doesn't account for other challenges that may come from a local disaster storm event. The request is to provide for a 6-month extension of the time to hear applications that are pending during the recent disaster declaration. What we're recommending is that the board schedule, that does take a code amendment, so we're recommending that the board schedule public hearings for the January and February land use meetings. What we recommend is that, at the very least, that the provision become retroactive, so that if there are applications that time out between the storms and when the code can be amended, that those applications are not penalized. There's also a question of whether, what we're recommending is that this be put into code to apply for this event plus future events, so that if there's a local state of emergency in the future, that we'll have the ability to extend those hearing time periods. There is I think, maybe an open question. I've heard from different preferences on this, of whether that extension should be up to 6 months, giving latitude for the severity of the event, or whether it should be a strict 6-month, a straightforward 6-month extension anytime there's a local disaster declaration. So we'll certainly take the preference of the board on that, or we can advertise both for the hearing if so desired, but would ask that the board take motion by supermajority vote to set those land development code public hearings for the January and February land use meetings. The reason for a supermajority vote is that we would be holding one of those two hearings before 5 p.m., which is a statute. Florida statute allows that with a supermajority vote. So that's the reason for the supermajority vote, and I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen?
The proposal you're making, are these continuances essentially going to be granted out as of right, or are people going to have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to get them?
The continuances can, there's several ways continuances can be granted. They can be granted as a matter of right. There could be granted by the hearing officer as a discretionary item if the applicant is not ready, and there is also if the application is not noticed, it must be continued. So what this would do is it would allow a greater time period for those continuances to take place. So if an applicant was looking at it, say today, and knew they weren't going to be prepared, and they wanted to continue out 2-3 months, they would have the ability to do that. It's not changing the continuance dynamics. And one of the things that continuances do is it preserves the notice for applicants. So it would provide the extended time period and wouldn't affect the basis for requesting continuances.
The one thing I would say is that I think you've got to treat everybody the same. And if you start having a situation where some get extensions and others do not get extensions, you're going to have big problems. Yeah. So that's what my concern would be.
Yeah, and I would like to clarify that. That is by no means what I'm suggesting or recommending here, by any means. What I'm describing is something that would apply to all applications. The variability would be to the storm event or the local disaster event. Again, not making any recommendation or suggesting that we discriminate between applications.
I'm certainly in support of doing it. I'll even make the motion to start with to go ahead and do it. But I just, let's not have a situation where, for example, a hearing officer could say, okay, you get an extension and you don't because of the same storm event. I think that's problematic.
Yes, and Commissioner, let me, perhaps if I could, I didn't probably explain this well. What I'm suggesting is that this be a power granted to the administrator. And again, there is no intent, desire whatsoever to discriminate between different applications. It's not at all the intent. I don't believe I worded it that way. I was
really more trying to prevent you getting into a situation where you have 10 applications and you say, okay, 6 of them are extended and 4 are not.
100% in agreement and always have been. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Myers?
Support with up to 6 months, up to 6 months on a case-by-case basis. That's what I would support. That was your recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Up to,
Yes,
correct? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wostel?
Did you make a motion?
Yes.
And it's for that, it's a granted right, 6 months.
Up Up to 6 months at the discretion, again, see,
Yeah,
if
see.
we're getting into discretion here, I think,
That was his recommendation.
but I think maybe to be a little broader and go for just say 6 months, and then they can always work within it, you know.
As long as it's a granted right of 6 months and there's not somebody picking and choosing, I will, if that's what the motion was, I think Commissioner Cepeda seconded it, I will support that. Granted right, 6 months, no favoritism.
Okay, so the motion by Commissioner Cohen, second Commissioner Cameron Cepeda. Commissioner Bowles?
Quickly, this is for ones that are in the hopper, to say. So someone can't come along during the storm or right after and then say, hey, I want to file, and then they get a 6 months, and then it kind of perpetually drags on during that whole process. This is for someone who storm is here, or the emergency, excuse me. We're using the storm as an example.
Yes, sir.
Only those that were pre-storm.
Correct, correct.
Just to make sure.
The ones that are in process that would be detrimentally impacted by that clock still running while the storm event and recovery.
Right,
Or whatever emergency event and recovery was still ongoing.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I'll see anyone else in the queue. Please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, with that, we're adjourned.